Hi, this is a webinar meant to introduce you to the virtual speech language therapy group presented by Akil Autism Foundation and Circles of Communication. I'm Amy Pinder, a speech language therapist and the owner and founder of Circles of Communication, which is an integrative therapy practice in New Jersey. Um, I am a certified speech language pathologist, ASHA certified, and also a certified DIR floor time provider with over 15 years of experience working with individuals with autism and other neurodevelopmental differences of all ages. I first met a person with autism when I was a child myself. I was a teenager working at a summer camp, and my relationship with that child just clicked. I was able to relate to him and make sense of the way he was thinking, and we were a sense of learning and comfort for one another. So ever since that experience, that's pretty much what I've devoted my professional life to, and it spills over into my personal life with so many special relationships that I've formed over the years. That said, I use a developmental and holistic and person-centered approach that's truly integrative. Everything I do is really to try to tap into all of the domains that we use for learning. So that includes cognitive, linguistic, sensory, motor, social, and emotional. I have received lots of training over the years in a variety of integrative approaches that I fuse into the therapy that I offer. Those include the developmental individual differences relationship-based model, known as DIR and floor time. That's an approach that I intuitively believe in and use as a framework for the way that I relate to all people on and off the spectrum. Also, the Maskatova neurosensory motor reflex integration protocols. I've received a lot of training in, and I use that knowledge of the developmental reflex patterns to inform the movement-based therapy that I offer as part of my practice. I am level 1 trained in prompt, the prompts for restructuring oral motor phonetic targets. I use tactile cues and also what I like to call air cues in my therapy with a lot of success for learners who struggle to form the motor plans for spoken language. An adaptation of the prompt method, if you will. I am trained in the rapid prompting method and use that frequently. I have a lot of typers on my caseload and find that typing to communicate is one of the most freeing forms of communication because it can lead to limitless and open-ended communication. I love that rapid prompting method starts with full independence and builds on skills from a very structured and concrete place to an open-ended and limitless place, as I just mentioned. I'm also trained in applied behavioral analysis, augmentative and alternative communication, many different platforms, low tech and high tech. But iPads can be a really useful tool, even for typers. There's now some really great apps that include some of the features of RPM, the rapid prompting method, right within their systems. So it's obvious that there's others who are finding value in including typing and typing skills within the AAC platforms. And the vocabulary buttons, which I call quick fires, are really useful as well because they enable us to reduce frustration. By not having to type whole messages over and over again, but instead quickly fire the things we say frequently. Viconic language methods is a set of strategies that capitalizes on our visual learning system. There's a lot of evidence that all people think in pictures more than they do in written words, and Viconic language methods capitalize on that way of thinking. I am a certified children's yoga instructor, a holistic circus therapist, and also a mindfulness educator. So all of those final 3 things inform the approach that I take, using play-based movement that's appropriate for all ages, infusing mindfulness and yoga. And you'll see more of what I mean as I continue talking about this virtual group being offered to you. So Here it is, the group overview. Our virtual speech language therapy group focuses on building and expanding receptive and expressive language skills, executive functions, all the things that happen up here in the front of our brains that help us make decisions and problem solve and think in the moment. Social communication, and it's all using multiple language modalities. So we're working on speech, spoken language, um, augmentative alternative communication systems, and also on typing as a modality for communication. This group is interactive and it, of course, adapts to the needs of the learners who participate. So all abilities, all are welcome. We can definitely find a way to include the skills that are meaningful for you or your child or adult. Some components of the group include deep breathing, movement, structured practice, and parent coaching, which is really valuable to any therapeutic session. So more on the components and why they're included. Deep breathing supports emotional regulation, and that's a necessary prerequisite for successful communication. I like to remind anyone who wants to listen that when we are angry or upset, it's really hard to not only take a deep breath, but to express ourselves clearly. So from an elevated state, that fight or flight state, it's really difficult to have the ability to form words and sentences and share our ideas at all. And that's true for everyone. Think about the last time you tried to have a conversation while angry. How did it go? So we have to be in a calm, regulated place to communicate optimally, and deep breathing can help with that. It also brings awareness and control to the foundation of all vocalization. Our vocal folds or vocal cords live right here in our throat, but they can't vibrate without our breath. So focusing on the work that our lungs and our diaphragm do is really important for spoken language production. Again, it's the foundation of all vocalization. Without volitional control of our breath, like telling our body to breathe on command, we cannot produce voice. So that's a really important foundation, and we work on that in each session and provide strategies that you can continue throughout the week. Movement is also included. I'm a big fan of movement, given my yoga backgrounds. That's a personal and professional practice. So moving our bodies is grounding, and it helps to wake up all the neural pathways in our brain. And when our brain feels connected to our body, we're better able to notice our feelings, to think, act, and communicate effectively. So just like I was saying about, not being able to communicate angry, we're also not so good at communicating when we feel disconnected from our body. And what I found with kids on the spectrum and adults on the spectrum is they often have a poor sense of where their body is in space, struggle to control their bodies in the ways that they want them to move. There's a lot of really incredible individuals who have found the words to explain their experiences living in a body with autism, and they say things like, my mind can't get my body to do what it wants. So moving intentionally is really, really important for body awareness and body control. And when we have that sense of control, we are better able to, like I said, think and act and communicate. So again, a really essential prerequisite in my opinion. So the guided movement in this group is informed by research on developmental movement patterns and on an applied approach called brain dance, which was created by Anne Green Gilbert. Sorry about that. More on brain dance. Brain dance is a series of exercises based on the 8 fundamental developmental movement patterns that we go through in the first year of our lives. By going through these patterns daily or weekly, as adults or children, we can rewire our sensory motor system to some extent, physically reteaching ourselves how our body is organized from the inside out. So again, this is based on developmental movement patterns and the body of research that's existed on that for a very long time. That is the same body of research that informed Svetlana Muskatova's MNRI protocols. But again, this is an applied approach. So instead of having something done to our body, we engage in a practice that we do for ourselves. And I find that to be a really fun and empowering approach that strengthens confidence, which is also really, really essential to become a competent communicator. We have to be confident in order to communicate. So, like I said, in addition to this being a fun way to practice motor skills, a regular brain dance practice can help increase blood flow to the respiratory system and brain, enhance core support and alignment, improve memory, focus, sensory integration, and more. And again, all of these things are important to communicate. This is really a top-down approach and a whole body approach to getting ready to become an effective communicator, or continuing the journey towards effective communication. For example, that breath control, can be supported by brain dance, core support and alignment. When we sit up straight, we're activating parts of our brain that can become sluggish when we're leaning forward. So all of these things are just little pieces of what it requires to communicate clearly. So an example of brain dance, we'll get into it a lot more in the group, but we'll go through the 8 patterns in the group. Today we're going to do the head-tail pattern together, and one easy way to start doing one of the brain dance patterns immediately is to do some seated cat-cow right here in your chair as you're watching. So that requires making your body big by lifting your chest, putting your shoulders back and looking up, feeling that expansion in your chest and in your body, looking up at the outside world, taking in the visual information around you. And then conversely, making yourself small. So feeling the contraction, bringing your shoulders up so that you can make your belly curve in and become a bit hollow, looking down, and now becoming aware not of the outside world, but of your own body. So there's a lot to that going on really quickly. So we'll do it again. I have my hands on my lap. I'm sitting up tall, chest elevated, shoulders back, looking up, taking in the outside world, and then getting small, shoulders up, head down, looking and inward, belly in. We can, of course, pair it with breath. So inhale up, exhale down, inhale up, exhale down. That's a head-tail pattern example. We can exaggerate that for kids that is too subtle for, and we can make that bigger. It can look bigger like this, opening up, chest up, arms up, and then giving a self-hug as we curl in, get small, providing ourselves with a little bit of inner comfort. Again, getting big, taking in what's around us, getting small. So inhale big, exhale small. So give that a try. You'll be doing one brain dance pattern, and it feels good. And that one also has the added benefit of helping our posture and supporting our neck, which holds up our brain and helps us look at screens. So that's a really good body part to take extra care of. Especially these days. I'm recording this the end of April, so we're home because of COVID-19. So there's many more patterns that are part of brain dance. That's just one of them, and a little sample of what we'll go through in the group. We'll also touch on hand thinking in the group. We think with our hands by using them as a source of tactile and proprioceptive kinesthetic sensory input. They also help us type, play, explore, and work. So moving our hands intentionally can be a really powerful way to strengthen our fine motor control and also the brain-body connection. The concept of hand thinking originally comes from Piaget's book, Thinking Goes to School. There's a whole chapter there about the input we receive from our hands and why doing hand exercises is valuable for cognition. You know, and when it comes to a speech perspective, the fine motor control that we gain by moving our hands intentionally, I find translates to oral motor control. We humans have the most refined of all motor acts amongst the mammal kingdom. That's the movements that we're capable of making with our mouths that produce speech sounds. So if we struggle with gross motor control or fine motor control, we're definitely going to struggle with oral motor control because it's the most refined movement that any human makes, that any mammal makes. It makes humans really unique and special, and it's also really complex. What happens in our brain and gets sent down to our mouth, it happens so rapidly in just an instant. So if there's any interruption to our motor planning, it can be really frustrating and really difficult. So gross motor work that we address through movement like brain dance and fine motor work, I find again to be a really valuable set of tools for supporting oral motor planning and processing and improvements in that area. And again, the brain-body connection. When we are able to use our brain to command intentionally that our body does something, we're gaining control and awareness. And that's really helpful for communicating. Speech is another focus of our group. Through structured exercises, visual cues, and tactile input, we can wake up and gain control of and bring awareness to the nerves and the muscles in our mouth and our jaw, and learn to refine the motor patterns and sequences needed to smoothly transition between spoken consonant and vowel sounds. So like I was saying, all of that happens so instantaneously for so many of us. But when spoken language is not automatic, then there are things that we can do to help retrain or train the brain to control those muscles, to send those signals more effectively. And those are the things that we work on in the group. So we're going to go through a quick example of giving our mouth some additional information so that we can speak more clearly. So first we're going to tap from the base of our ear here, down our cheeks, right where our jaw lives. Just tapping, waking up those muscles. There's so many nerves covering our body, in our skin everywhere. So we're just tapping a little bit. Feels good. And we're also going to give a little self-massage to bring a different type of sensory input, a deep sensory input up and down our face. So ideally, a learner does this themselves. If you have a very young child or a child that's you have a really close relationship with, this would be okay to do to them as well if they feel good about it. You know, it's really, really personal to have your face touched. So if you are the parent of or working with a kid who doesn't want you to touch your face, I really urge you to respect that. And you can just do it to yourself and show them. That's a really fantastic first step. And you can comment that this feels really nice. Wow, I'm waking up the muscles in my face. So if that works for you in some way, great. And now we're going to talk about some cues that we can use to support our oral motor planning. So I've got two little words here, bat and tea. So I'm going to touch on my own mouth, the parts of my mouth, what I call my speech helpers that make those sounds. So we put our lips together for B. They close and open, B. So I'm just going to touch my lips to remind myself that my lips make the B sound, B. When we say the vowel ah, our mouth opens, right? Like this, ah. So I'm just going to touch my chin, ah, to remind myself that my chin comes down, ah, when I make the vowel A. So far we've done B, ah. Now we're going to add the final consonant, the t sound. So take a minute and make a t sound yourself. T, t. See if you can notice the speech helper there. T, t. It's your tongue. Your tongue is pushing on the roof of your mouth quickly, tapping t, and pushing to make a t sound. So the belly, the muscle belly of your tongue lives down here at the bottom of your mouth. So to remind our tongue to go up and tap behind our teeth, we're just gonna touch our chin underneath. Here we touched for A because it opens. Here we touch under because that's where the bottom of our tongue muscle lives to remind it to go up. So it looks like this. B, A, T. And we're gonna put that together smoothly because speech is said fluidly. More like this, bat. So you can go slow at first. I find that it really actually does help to go slow. Just like kids on the spectrum often need additional time to process information and to act on the information they receive, I find that their brains really benefit from additional time to practice each component of the sounds. So start slow and then become more fluid. You can do slow input and then say it out loud, maybe adding something like a clap to, represent putting the word together. So it could look something like this. Bat, at, b, at, bat. Let's try the second word. That's T. So we already did the Q for T. We just touched the bottom of our chin, T, where our tongue muscle belly lives. And for E, I like to call that the smile sound. E. We can't say E without smiling. That's why we say cheese when we snap a photo. So we're just going to put our own fingers right where they'd be if we had dimples to support our own mouth in making a smile. So T, E, T, E. Again, I'm going slow to allow for that processing time that I've found to be really beneficial in my practice over the years. And I'll do it again, and then I'll speed it up, putting it together, represented by a clap. So T, E, T, E, T. Sorry about that. One more time. T, E, T. So feel free to take a screenshot of those words, give it a try, and more importantly, come to our group where we'll go through a lot more cues and a lot more practice and give you a lot of ideas for home carryover. In the group, we also cover typing to communicate. When typing to communicate, speaking aloud the phonetic sounds each letter makes may help the brain learn and process the information needed to produce complex motor plans and sequences for spoken language. Adding musical intonation may also support motor planning by adding the temporal aspects of language, such as rhythm and melody. So we will talk a lot more about that in the group. I have found that when typing, sometimes the tendency is to say aloud the letter names, but the letter names don't match the sounds that our brain needs to send to our mouth in order to produce the spoken word. So for example, cat, C-A-T, sounds nothing like k-at, cat, right? So when typing on a letterboard, such as this one, saying aloud the phonetic sounds can be a really nice transition to supporting the spoken word. So instead of C-A-T, cat, there's really very little relationship between the sounds C-A-T and the word cat. We instead make the transition to saying k-at, cat. So that's one piece that you can start to try at home. See if that helps your child. And we'll talk a lot more about related strategies within our virtual speech language group, which I hope you join. Now we're going to add a little bit of melody to a short sentence because adding melody capitalizes on the inherent rhythm and timing that is part of human spoken language. So often when we add melody, it can support motor planning, and that's because when we sing, it happens in a different part of the brain than when we speak, which is some really interesting neuroscience, in my opinion. But when reading aloud with your child at home, when doing something like reading a storybook or reading a school assignment or a poem or anything that they find interesting, really, try adding a sing-songy nature to your own voice and see if that helps your child imitate you and speak more clearly themselves. So here's the sentence, what did you say? Try saying it with a sing-songy nature like this. What did you say? I'll do that again. What did you say? So have fun with that and give it a try at home. See if that helps you and your child. Also in the group, we review WH words. Maybe you feel that your child already knows some of the WH words or responds to some WH questions successfully, but WH words provide a framework for organizing the language that we use to communicate. Thinking about the WH words can help us make longer sentences and answer questions. So in other words, knowledge and full understanding and use of the WH words can help with both receptive and expressive language. Receptive language by answering questions asked of us accurately and really tuning in to the piece of information being asked for. And then expressively by self-questioning what we know in order to formulate a detailed and accurate response. So for example, in order to recall a recent personal experience, we can ask ourselves, silently in our brain, who did I do it with? What was I doing? When did I do it? Where was I? Why did I do it? How did I do it? And if we include at least half of those pieces of information in the sentence that we formulate to share a recent personal experience, then that's a lot of detail and a lot of specificity. So the WH words are a really important framework for all language, receptive and expressive, and we will touch on that more, ways to practice it, bring awareness and understanding to this during the virtual speech and language group. So I hope that you will join us this April. The Akil Autism Foundation has sponsored free speech and language therapy groups every Tuesday and Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. So we have a few left. You can come and join and check out free of charge. And we'll be continuing the group moving forward. You'll be able to get the most up-to-date information on that at akilautismfoundation.org. If you have any specific questions, you can also write to them. And the email address is at the bottom of this flyer here, programs@akilautismfoundation.org. And we also have private sessions available. So if you would like to begin with a private session or join the group and find that these strategies are something you'd really like to get individualized support for, then that would be great. I'd love to hear from you, and so would those at Akil Autism Foundation. In addition to the speech and language therapy groups, Akil Autism Foundation has also been offering movement groups on Thursday, led by a physical therapist, and a virtual book reading program. So again, check out their website, consider joining our speech language therapy group through the end of this month and moving forward, and also consider the private sessions available to you at this time via teletherapy. So Any questions, please contact us. Here's the contact information one more time. Again, I'm Amy Pinder, a speech language therapist and founder of Circles of Communication, an integrated speech language therapy practice in New Jersey. My email address is circlesofcommunication@gmail.com, and you can learn more about all that I offer on my website, circlesofcommunication.com. And you can learn all about what Akil Autism Foundation does at akilautismfoundation.org. You can learn about their programs, how to join our virtual speech language therapy group, the other groups, or to get registered for one-on-one sessions at programs@akilautismfoundation.org. So thanks for tuning in. I look forward to seeing some of you virtually and hearing from you. Have a great day.